Yo, dude, what are you doing right now?
Oh, hey, yeah, I'm just in SketchUp designing that pot rack for Mrs. Lauer that she wanted for the kitchen.
How about instead we play some video games?
Oh, well, SketchUp is actually a lot like a video game.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a easy to learn design program where you can create three-dimensional components and then build them in the real world.
Okay.
That's pretty neat, huh?
Okay, nerd. What are you doing after that?
Well, after that, I'm going to be editing this video.
And what are you doing after that?
Well, after that, I'm building the project, of course.
Okay, never mind.
So to begin, I'm going to draw a rectangle and then push-pull it into the dimensions that I need. I draw a line across and use the push-pull tool to create the rabbet that is going to help support all of the weight that's going to be on the front of this pot rack. And that rabbet needs to be on the top so that the underside of that arm can hold that incredible weight that all of the kitchen utensils are going to put on this thing. Next, I bring out the second arm in a move copy and draw the rail that's going to go across. I then match all of the joinery so that they fit together. After that, I want to find the center of this rail and draw out where the half lap is going to be in the center. So I decided to build a pot rack in the first place because my wife decided that I had to build a pot rack, and so here we are designing and building a pot rack. I then copy another arm into the center part. At this point, I'm trying to create the blocking that's going to go up against the wall. This is going to be all the support, the backing, the part that screws into the wall and into the studs. It's really important that I get this at the length and the angle that I want. I'm just using the push-pull tool. And to make sure that it comes down far enough, I measured out a 45-degree angle from the front of the pot rack just to see how far down I need to actually make this thing. It's looking pretty good so far. Now, one thing that I realized is that I actually want this to go forward just a little bit. So I brought this forward 3/4 of an inch, which is the thickness of my material, and then I adjusted it accordingly. This little overlap is going to allow me to draw the joinery, which for this project is going to be a dovetail. Here I'm just marking out the boundaries of my dovetail, figuring out where the depth and the starting points for the tail is going to be. And then I line it out so that I can use the push-pull tool to notch out the sides of my dovetail. I used to make SketchUp joinery by cutting out the exact same thing on the other side of the joint, but I ended up figuring out that there are some solid tools that allow you to do that automatically. Specifically, this trim tool will allow you to trim one entity from another, and figuring out how to use that properly really saves a lot of time when you're making joinery in SketchUp. I highly recommend that you check it out. It's kind of hard to figure out at first which tool does which operation, but a little bit of back and forth and some liberal use of the undo key really makes it worth it. Next, I'm going to make the joinery for the center portion. I'm going to get rid of the dovetail and bring it out to full length because I don't want a dovetail in the center. Instead, it's going to be more of a mortise and tenon setup. I'm going to copy over a unique component that can fit on the wall. I'm going to do that same trick where I notch out the mortise for the center arm. This design is going to call for some 45-degree braces. And so basically I'm just marking out where the braces are going to go, getting them to thickness. I do decide I want to move them back a little bit because I don't want them interfering with the joinery in the front. So I think I moved them back maybe about an inch or so. Once I get them in the position that I want, I'm actually going to edit them slightly so that I can make a half lap joint. And that's going to happen on both sides. The half lap joint is really strong in this situation because it slims down on the amount of material, but the shoulder also allows for the load of all of the heavy pots and pans to transfer from the front of the pot rack all the way down to the bottom of the braces on the back and into the wall studs. It also makes it so that I don't have to rely so much on fasteners to hold all that weight, which is never truly a reliable way to hold weight. Next, I'm making a shelf for the top. And for this, I'm just going to use some 1/2-inch plywood, maybe some 3/4-inch plywood, but I think I'll probably go with 1/2-inch Baltic birch plywood. I draw a rectangle across the top and then extend the notches a little bit towards the back to fill in the backspace. Underneath, I'm just going to make a few little cleats, and this is going to help support the backside just so that all 4 corners of this rectangle are fully supported. So in case I put any weight on that shelf, like a crock pot, it is going to be able to support even all the way in the back. Now, I'm not really doing any design in this SketchUp, but what I may decide to do later is a couple of chamfers or some routed profiles or, something to make it look a little nicer. But that's pretty much it for this design. At this point, I'm just kind of playing around with a little bit of trim. What I end up doing is creating a trim profile that I then wrap all the way around the pot rack. I'm just putting together a little design build-up. I'm not really putting a lot of effort into it, and honestly, if I were to actually do this, I would probably just buy some trim from the local home store in whatever style I decide looks really good, and just use that. By putting the trim just slightly proud of the top shelf, it creates that little safety lip to keep anything from accidentally sliding off the shelf. Now, what's cool about SketchUp is it's got this little feature called the follow tool, which will basically take a profile and follow and wrap around a perimeter. It's a little bit tricky to use and a little finicky, but it's really good for adding that little touch of trim or embellishment or decoration, whatever you want to use. And that is a pretty much completed design with a little bit of embellishment on the top. Like I said, I will probably ad-lib a little of the design as I go. This is mostly just for planning all the construction, making sure I get all the dimensions proper. Speaking of dimensions, I made a copy of this entire model and exploded all the parts and laid them out all nice and flat. What this allows me to do is take the dimension tool and pull dimensions from each and every part, every little section, all the measurements between one end and where a piece of joinery starts. And basically the reason for this is so that I can print this out and take it into the shop and have all the information that I need to build this project. It's really important to do this. That way I don't have to keep going back and forth between my computer and my workshop. I have it on a piece of paper where I can just jot down whatever I want as I go. You want to make sure that you get all the outside dimensions of each piece as well as distances from important features on each piece. You need to know how big of a piece of material that you are cutting, and you also need to know the distance between the ends of your pieces and wherever a feature starts. Now, I'm not including the thickness of the material in this project. I am going to be using 3/4-inch poplar for this. I could write it down on this design if I wanted to, but I just know that in my head. It's what I usually work with, so I did not put that in this design. But if you do something like this, then feel free to put down the thickness as a label or something. So Mrs. Lauer, please tell me, what are your opinions on this pot rack design?
I actually really like the design. I know that when you set out to do it, it might have seemed kind of simplistic, like it's a series of triangles. However, when I look at it, what I actually see is something that's kind of farmhouse inspired. And I'm not sure if that's because I've seen all of the wood pieces, the physical wood pieces already, so it's really easy to envision. But that's what I see from it. I see farmhouse inspired. I think it's going to go really, really well in our kitchen, which is sort of classic, not super ornate, shaker style cabinets. I think it's going to look really
It's not
good.
super fancy.
No. So I think that this style is going to look really nice.
But you could also, carve a little bit of embellishments into some of the 45-degree braces, and like chamfering the edges, just adding a little bit of extra design to it. It's not necessary, but it's something that we could do.
Absolutely. There's a lot of room there for sort of flair and customization.
What about like those floral designs on
I was
the
just
walls,
thinking like the Scandinavian,
like in Witcher 3?
The Scandinavian inspired floral designs, I think, would actually look really, really beautiful.
Yeah, we'll think about it.
Yes.
Think about it. I decided to keep this video just with the SketchUp design phase because I really didn't want to stretch this project into a super long video, and plus I really just wanted to showcase the SketchUp section. But in the next video I'm going to be in the shop actually building this thing, so that will be the next step to look forward to. In the meanwhile, here's a perfectly competent design for a pot rack, and I'm excited to see how it's going to turn out. I hope you are too. I'll see you in the next video.